All right, man. Before we clicked on, you said you're going to tell me what your workout was, but then you're like, man, it might be a good one just to chat on camera. So, what did you
Yeah.
hit today?
Well, it's why I'm looking my best right now, Pat. It's a hot and sweaty Nashville summer day, so I'm a little disheveled due to this humidity, but managed to get a little one in this morning. It was a main site, so shout out CrossFit main site. It was a fun one. 8-minute clock, Pat, 3 times. So no matter how long it
Okay.
takes you, you start on the 8 minutes, 1,000 meter row, 15 burpees over the rower, 30 wall ball. That's
Oh,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Sure.
then hit it again at 8 minutes, hit it again at 16 minutes, call it quits. It was good. Very
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah.
Turns out it's still potent.
It's such a understated way to say something. Very effective. It's very
Mm-hmm.
effective.
Yeah.
We've got a good show today that actually the last time that we filmed, when we were discussing topics, we decided on one before we clicked on the camera. And then maybe after the show, when you and I were chatting, I mentioned this to you, and you were immediately just like, "I like it. We got to get after that one." So it's going to
Yep.
be about um, sprinting. Should people sprint? Is sprinting dangerous? Who should or shouldn't sprint? Should you do it on tired legs? Like, there's a lot of good stuff there. But before we get into that, I'll do the housekeeping. Appreciate everybody out there. You want to help keep supporting the show? Go to variednotrandom.com. Check out all the cycles that we offer. On-ramp programs for barbell, dumbbell, body weight. There's a whole bunch of get your firsts: strict pull-up, kipping pull-up, bar muscle-up, ring dips, handstand push-up, you name it. Bunch of barbell capacity stuff, and then some really cool things like this one all about the jump rope, which is a phenomenal one to get you, the world is more than double unders. There's a 12-week run, bike, row program for just build that engine, 1.5-mile run. So check all those out. Then if you're a gym owner, you've got to do all the things: workout tracking for all your members, gym management, billing, and now you don't have to use different platforms for that. btwb has it all together for their all-in-one. So if you are a gym owner and you're interested in learning about that, go to btwb.com. Okay, much like they would say at the beginning of like crime sitcoms or whatnot, like the facts are the same, but the names have been changed to protect the innocent. Okay, so that's
Not the guilty. No.
I'm going to speak I'm going to speak some generalities here, but I'll get the point across. So this is in regards to a workout that was programmed that involved a very difficult set of squats, and then you were going to run your tail off afterwards for like 400-meter runs, and they were maximum effort sort of a deals. And this one woman was going to be engaged in the workout. She had mentioned the workout to her significant other, her boyfriend, and her boyfriend basically said like, "A, that's a terrible idea. You shouldn't be doing a maximal effort like sprinting and running, especially not on tired legs. Like that's for sure. You're just asking for injury." And then on top, so why would you do that? And then on top of that, he had watched a YouTube video from, again, I'm not looking like, not going to drop any names here. People might be able to figure it out just by context, but a very well-known academic that discusses exercise regularly, and I actually had a very a good coach in the video as well, and they basically said like the the academic was hosting this coach whose specialty is sprinting and running, and the point was like, look, sprinting is profoundly basically demanding on the body, and because of that, the crux of it, as displayed in this comment, was that um, most people should not sprint. Like period, end of story. Most people should not sprint, uh, and if so, you're gonna have to warm up like an hour. Regular people, just their muscles and their tendons are not ready for sprinting. So A, it should be avoided if you're most likely any human being walking planet Earth. And then on top of that, if most people shouldn't sprint, period, then I can't even imagine doing it on tired legs. I mean, that sounds borderline reckless. So, hey, avoid this workout. And I threw that your way, and you were just
Yeah.
salivating.
Yeah, pretty much. I
As
mean, I
was
just
I.
think
As was I.
I yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. And I was thinking about this quite a bit over the last couple of days when we started, just batting it around. But I think it can really come down to relative intensity at the end of the day, not as a kind of get out of jail free card. But I think there's so many things that people are kind of taking as assumptions, both in that conversation and in full disclosure, I haven't listened to the interview you're talking about, but hearing it secondhand, I think there's some built-in assumptions there. And then
I
secondarily,
have
some
watched the
assumptions
whole
about
video just
this.
for
Yeah.
context. Go ahead.
Okay. About this workout. And so let's start there. I mean, assumption number one is that the body just doesn't have any sort of governor at all, and that there is just no intelligence built into the system. And no matter what, if I say sprint 100%, it doesn't matter what my fatigue level it is. It doesn't matter what my body's understood fitness level is. I will just be able to completely ungoverned put out an effort that will damage me. And that is crazy. I don't believe that that is the case. And I don't believe that people that put that out there believe that that is the case. In the same way that I could theoretically try to attempt a 700-pound deadlift or a 1,000-pound deadlift. But what will happen before I get that weight off of the ground and therefore I'm handling a load that I'm not prepared to do so is I just simply won't be able to move it. There is a governor on that effort. I will be shut down by my nervous system before there is any sort of significant damage. And it seems strange to me that that wouldn't be something that was at least taken into account in this situation. So that's number one. And maybe that's kind of talking out of my depth a little bit. I'll admit that. That's fine. But it is kind of a weird thing to assume that we're talking about this world where the mind can just put somebody in a situation where nothing else matters. I can just say I'm going to sprint at 100%, and anything that happened before that or any fatigue that's built up is just totally discounted because my mind said sprint. And I think that's absurd. So that's kind of number one, and maybe a little more abstract. I got some more concrete things I want to talk about, but that's the first thing to me is just it's such a weird hypothetical to be talking about in the first place.
I'm going to do my absolute best. I promise you and the audience that, to give my most charitable answer possible, because I have just a good old bunch of like New England sarcasm of which I could answer, but I don't think that serves anyone well. So the first thing is, maybe even before I step back and tackle multiple things, sprinting. Okay, the term sprinting gets thrown around, and I'll admit, I use it probably in a broader context than it actually is, because I'm just lazy at times like people, and I'm not writing a clinical paper. I think if you're like really define what sprinting is, it would be, maximal unsustainable efforts, shorter in distance. I think sub 1 minute would be generally accepted by most. Your 200s, your
For
100s,
the distance of a 400?
your 50s. The 400, I think like the 400 is a great one, where I guess it depends upon how quick you are. For most of us, it's going to be north of a minute or whatnot. And
oh God, sorry. I thought you were naming a specific distance.
Oh no, I'd say like you're sprinting normally, but I'll throw out like, hey, I'm doing 400-meter sprints. A lot of people are probably like, well, those aren't really sprints. Hey, I'm going to go do a 3x800-meter sprint. Like, you're sprinting 800 meters? It's like, okay, relax, buddy. What most of us mean when we're talking about that is, if I'm running 3 800s or 6 400s, I'm going to run those at a pace that is, I'm trying to go as fast as I can for that given distance. That whatever pace I'm doing for the 800, I couldn't have done it for 1,000. Like I'm maxing out that distance for me. So I think that is generally thrown out there for sprinting. So now if we think about sprinting, I'll tackle the first part, which was, why would you want to sprint on tired legs and things like that? So just a couple quick bullet points. Go ahead.
Before we do that, I mean, to kind of build on your point there, I wonder if this would be as contentious if the nomenclature was simply different. Do you know what I mean? Like, to your point, if you're talking about sprint and people take this as this literal 100% cannot be repeated effort, it is the most explosive and aggressive thing you can do. Okay, fine, I get it. But in practicality, anybody who's done a workout like this understands, to my earlier point, that that's not exactly the case. There is a governor there. And it is both the fact that you have to repeat this effort and the fatigue that's built up, etc. And so if it were just simply to be labeled as a run for a 400 meter, I wonder if anybody'd have any contention with it at all, frankly.
Yeah, or run ... really,
Fast.
really hard and fast.
Right, exactly. So
Really
anyway,
hard, like try to
yeah.
meet pukey. Whatever you want to call that, most of
Yeah.
us just use the term sprinting because,
Sure.
I mean, we're not
It's the
jogging
parlance
like
of our
you would.
times, you know?
Exactly. You're not, modulating your pace like you would during a 5-round workout that has 3 elements, one of which is a 400-meter run. Those 400s look way different than a 6x400 meter track day with 4 minutes of dedicated rest between each. And so on that 6x400, you just throw out the term sprinting, meaning we're going to run really darn hard,
Right.
like really harder
Yeah.
than you would. So anyway, yes, exactly.
Or said another
Now-
way, it's just a way to differentiate from like, hey, we're not jogging here. You know?
Correct.
Like
Correct. Exactly. I'm not breaking out a set of blocks. There's not somebody with a starter pistol firing it in the air behind me, Anyway, yes. So why would you want to do that on tired legs? Maybe this can just help some people who might hear this at one point in time. I did a little, it's funny. There's a great Glassman quote that involves vulgarity, so I won't say it in its full nature here on the show. I'll say, keep it kid-friendly, crap in front of the word that he said. But he basically tells this
I wonder
story,
what it could be.
like back in the old days of the L1 seminars, which you probably remember, which everyone's sitting there, right? The staff is like the fittest humans on the planet, and all this stuff, and people are going back and forth, but there was no peer-reviewed papers at that point in time. So every now and then you get this thing. It's like, look, hey, great, like you're saying this stuff works, and all of you look like it does work, and you're saying that all of your friends are doing it and it works really well, but there's not a peer-reviewed paper, so I don't know if I can believe what you're saying. And he used to tell this analogy of like, you've got some coach on the field, football track or whatever, older coach with just a whistle around his thing, and he's just making beasts for years in his local area. Like, 15 years have gone by and he's just got these animals. And then one day somebody from the local school decides they're going to study what the coach is doing, and they do this big detailed scientific study, and he walks out and says, "Good news, coach, we proved that what you're doing works." And the coach is like, "Well, no crap. I didn't need your peer-reviewed
Sure.
paper to tell me what I've seen with my eyes for the last 15 consecutive years with different groups of people every single year works. I did not need your paper, but thank you." So it's kind of like, does sprinting on tired leg work? Like, I know that it does because it's been 20 years of watching it turn people into beasts. Then I'm like, well, I'm going to try to articulate, do some actual research as to why that is. So I did that for everybody. And so here are the 5 things that are generally associated with sprinting on tired legs, often referred to as fatigue training or overreaching, can provide specific psychological and mental benefits for athletes, particularly those in sports requiring high-intensity bursts like sprinting, soccer, or basketball. Number 1, improved anaerobic capacity. Each of these are more detailed. I'll just give you the bullet points. People can do their own research if they want. Number 1, improved anaerobic capacity, enhanced muscle resilience. Number 3, mental toughness. Amen to that. Number 4, improved recovery efficiency. And number 5, sports-specific adaptation. And each of those have a descriptive blurb. But point being, is there a reason to do this that is athletically beneficial? Yes, there is. And so hopefully that helps before I go into the other, like, now should most people sprint?
Yeah, it's funny to that point too, how things kind of come around and different things kind of come in vogue, and then the opposite is also suddenly true 10 years later, and then they go back to the original. And my point is that there used to be this workout that was trotted out all the time, which is totally legit in my opinion. And it was a workout of this, I think he was a track and field athlete back in the day. I can't remember his name. I'm probably going to get it wrong, but I think it was Litvinov. And famously, his like favorite workout to do, I believe he's a thrower, like a hammer thrower or something. And he used to love doing a heavy set of front squats, like a heavy triple or a heavy 5, immediately followed by a 400-meter run.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Rest and repeat.
Yep.
Multiple rounds. And again, we're talking about a throwing athlete. His event is literally 2 seconds, probably less. And that was like his favorite workout was quote unquote sprinting on tired legs. And people used to champion that workout all the time. And now suddenly it's not something you should be doing. It's kind of strange, you know? So these things kind of come and go in vogue. And it is kind of interesting to see. And to your point, that's one thing that I completely agree with all the time is, hey man, the study follows the success of the coach. The reason why somebody who's conducting a study even has something to be pointed at is because they say, look, why is this particular person producing things of a high caliber, or athletes of a high caliber?
Mhm.
What are they doing? And then that points them to the method that then becomes the subject of a study. So, you know, it's not often the case that this is just pulled out of thin air and then, you know, quote unquote science tells us how to do it. It's actually most of the time the opposite. So don't
Science
lose sight of
follows
that.
observation most of the
Right,
time.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, um, yeah, I just can't get past this whole idea of threshold and nomenclature, right? Called anything other than a sprint, would anybody bat an eye at this? I don't know. And then secondarily, it's like, okay, if we're looking at the threshold of speed that the human animal is capable of, and let's say we're being really, really pedantic about sprint, and that is your absolute most uncorked, hardest effort, cannot go any faster on one end, and you have sitting in the chair like I'm doing right now at the other. Well,
Mhm.
between those 2 points, you've got a huge range of speeds. And so at what point in the minds of the people that are criticizing this are you tipping over that threshold into, well, now it's unacceptable?
Mhm.
Where is it? How can you pinpoint that? And that to me is really kind of where things start to fall apart with this argument. It's like, okay, like how fast is too fast? And
Right.
below that, are you okay? And what makes it okay? What changes physiologically within the, you know, the properties of the tendons and the connective tissue, et cetera? Maybe there is some, and I'm not aware of it. That's perfectly possible. But I don't believe that like there's this set threshold that cross that line, all of a sudden things start to fall apart.
Yes, and here's again me being my most charitable possible. Um, Especially if we're talking, like I said before, like what we could define as like actual sprints, sub 1 minute. Your
Mhm.
200s, your 100s, your 50s, things like that. Anyone who has dabbled in those, I'm here to tell you, they are to be respected. Period. End of
Sure.
story. For the uninitiated, the unaccustomed, if you haven't built up a tolerance, if you shortchange your warm up, like I don't get no problem with people saying you better give your warm up the respect that it deserves before you're going to ask your posterior chain to run relative to your capacity as maximally as you can for 50s, 100s, or 200s, or almost on for more than any other workout, in my personal opinion, you run the risk of just grenading your hamstring. Like, I mean, so I
Yeah.
think there is a
Especially given the hard start of those
yeah,
short
100%. So
efforts.
these now, as the distance increases, 400s and 800s, just due to the fact that your speed is going to be significantly different than those. Like, I
Mhm.
think I think you've got a much wider strike zone of I didn't quite give the warm up what I needed to,
Mhm.
or I'm just getting back into things like, okay, I think you've got a more of a strike zone. You should still be respected, but we're talking 50s, 100s, and 200s. Yeah, so warm up, of course, 100%. This statement, in my mind, of very few people should truly sprint, and then that most average people's muscles and tendons cannot take a max effort sprint day. Those are the two things that I've just got some, I'm not even sure I'm going to say pushback. I have some points to bring forward that I hope, um, I don't know, put people at ease or just frame the conversation a bit differently if somebody is having this
Yep.
conversation with somebody that says maybe they shouldn't be sprinting. So I can dive into that or I can
Yeah.
pause and hear whatever's on your mind here.
Yep. I'd love to start. And to me, again, getting back to my point about, I think there's some built in assumptions here where we're not comparing an individual to themselves. And so if somebody were to say most people should not sprint, what I believe they're really saying is that most people are not capable of an effort that this trained athlete who is trained exclusively for sprinting um, is able to do. They cannot sustain that level of intensity or their joint integrity is not there to be able to manage that. And you know what? That's probably true. But that's not really fair either, because when you're talking about the individual, you have to consider what is a sprint for their relative ability. And, their speed dial, so to speak, is probably a little bit different than the athlete that's been training exclusively for that. So if we're talking about somebody who, okay, they're middle aged, they haven't done anything in 3 or 4 decades, and the first thing that they're being asked to do is go out and just hit a 100-meter dash as hard as they possibly can. Yeah, you're right. You're probably not setting that athlete up for success.
Right.
Now, I would also say, and this is purely, I legitimately don't know. I don't know that that's necessarily dangerous, although I wouldn't say it's a good idea either. You know what I mean? I think, to my point earlier, there's probably some governors on there. They're out of shape generally. They're just not that conditioned, so they can't propel themselves with that level of intensity, that it might be self-governing. Not to say I would recommend it, but regardless, I think the baked in assumption there is that they're comparing a trained athlete's level of intensity and ability to generate that amount of power with that person that is, maybe unconditioned or unpracticed. And I don't think that's a really fair comparison.
My counterpoint, to take the devil's advocate to that, of like whether it's injurious or just labeled as a bad idea, the first-hand thing that keeps coming back to me all the time was about 5 years ago when my wife decided to enroll herself in an adult soccer league, which was one of the most entertaining things I've seen that was not on television. It was incredible. It was full of just regular folks in their like mid 30s to mid 40s who didn't prepare in any way, shape, or form to play adult soccer, who just literally freed up their Tuesday night, went out there, did a couple
Yeah.
toe touches, and then fired it up. And every single game that I watched, somebody went hopping to the sideline, grabbing their hamstring. And I think they just, they just were not ready for what
Sure.
they just asked their body to do, which leads me to well, maybe that means, hey, most people shouldn't be sprinting, and average people's muscles and tendons aren't ready for this sort of an effort. Okay, here's what I would say, like, what does most people mean? And again, I had my biases, but I went to the wonders of the interwebs to try to just fact check my biases. So here we go. Average people. According to the CDC's National Health and Nutrition Examination data, 73.6% of US adults aged 20 and older are either overweight or obese. 73.6%. Okay, so now let's go back to the other thing. Most average people are not ready to sprint. Yeah. Yeah.
That's that.
Given that stat, yes, sure, because most people would be 73%. And if you're in the 26%, you're not in the most people category. So, okay, now I also looked up, sedentary and physically inactive, and it gave me a bunch of stuff, but it basically said, data suggests that basically 75.8% of adults fail to meet any sort of comprehensive physical activity guidelines. 75.6, so 76% fail to meet anything at all. Okay, so most people are doing nothing. Most people are profoundly unhealthy, unathletic, and sedentary. That is most people. So if you took this most people and you said, congratulations, after 17 years of inactivity, we're going to change your life. You know what we got today? 50-meter sprints. That would be a really bad idea, okay?
Not optimal. File under not optimal. Yeah.
Nothing about that. Their tendons aren't ready. Their muscles aren't ready. They ain't ready. So, right, most people shouldn't sprint. And I don't know how many of this show we've done. Couple hundred shows have we done or something like that. I think if people have watched us for a while, we very rarely toot our own horns. And I don't mean own horns meaning you and me, I mean CrossFitters. We very rarely try to have egos. We very rarely try to have hubris, but I'm here to have it for a little bit. My friends, we are not most people. We are not. If you are choosing to do
Demonstrably,
compound,
based on what you just said.
100%. If you are choosing to do compound difficult, technically challenging, functional movements at loads that you find challenging, and you are pushing yourself regularly with intensity, getting well outside your comfort zone, and you're learning new skills, and you're
Mhm.
lifting heavy, and you're going short, medium, and long, and you give a crap about what you eat in the kitchen and the aisles of the grocery store that you walk down, and you stretch and you get good sleep, you are not most people. You are doing cleans and burpees and lunges and running and jump rope and strength training. Your tendons and muscles and ligaments are not like most people. Period. End of story. And so when this just broadly is applied to most people shouldn't sprint, I'm
Mhm.
here to tell you, if you've been doing this stuff for 6 months, a year, 2 years, or 3 years, that information may not apply to you like it does to the quote unquote most people camp. And so
Yeah.
I will now get off my soapbox.
No, that's totally fair. And maybe, I think I want to refine my position a little bit, and say that I I guess what I'm assuming with this statement is when I hear most people shouldn't sprint, it's that most people shouldn't uh, build towards being able to run at a very fast speed. That's what
Mm,
I'm hearing in that. And maybe those are two different things. And maybe in fairness,
maybe.
they mean exactly that, that most people shouldn't sprint in their current condition. Okay, fine. But I guess my knee jerk is that you hear this all the time about so many things. Oh, you shouldn't weightlift.
Mm,
Like for a long time it was, oh, women shouldn't weightlift, or certain athletes, oh, a boxer shouldn't weightlift, or a gymnast shouldn't weightlift.
right.
They're going to become muscle bound and slow and whatever. And it's like, well, actually, that's completely false. And it can be very therapeutic and beneficial for so many different applications if you are smart about the integration you build up to it. Maybe that's what I'm assuming with that statement, is that they're saying that nobody can be trained up to doing this activity. And I vehemently disagree with that. So yeah, I guess I can agree, coming back around, that like, all right, if we're taking those stats at face value, that like there's a huge portion of the population that is sedentary and overweight. And yeah, you're right, they're probably not conditioned enough to jump in at a level like this. That's not to say that they could not get there with some training and some consistency. And maybe that's the beef I've got more than the initial statement, which is just, hey,
Yeah.
to me, it seems more damaging to limit people's belief in what they can achieve. Um, you know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Than to
I hope.
caution them against an activity that nobody's building a program around right out the gate as a beginner. Maybe
Mhm.
that makes more sense.
Yeah, I hope like the video in question didn't just all of a sudden scare people away from the benefits of sprinting or running darn fast or whatever
Right.
you want to
Sure.
call it.
Hitting the
And
track.
and
Yeah.
I also just hope that the death of common sense isn't as close as
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes fear that it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know, maybe you decide to get back into fitness. Okay, great. Good for you. Like, legitimately, good for you. And you sign up for some program or you do whatever it happens to be. And the day that you show up is a 10 by 100-meter dash. I hope
Sure.
there's some common sense of like, hmm, I'm going to modify something today,
Yeah.
or I'm going to take a crawl, walk, run approach,
Sure.
because like everything else, mechanics, consistency, and then and only then intensity, that applies to everything. It's just like if you, I don't know, if you showed up and day one was 4 sets of 8 on the back squat and you've never lifted in your life and you
Mhm.
decide to truly establish 3 heavy sets of 8 until like you're at like near blackout status, that's a really bad decision. It's a super bad
Right.
decision, even though it's not a
Yeah.
track day. Like, so, I wouldn't give a supercar to my son when he gets his license at 16 years old. It'd be a really bad idea. Like, I just hope there's some, again, crawl, walk, run. Are you beginner, intermediate, or
Yeah.
advanced? Where are you in your fitness journey? What have you been doing for the last 1 to 10 years? What is day one? Let me go ahead and just dip my toe in the water and let me build up some sort of tolerance, build up some sort of capacity, learn about myself, understand the breadth and depth of my physical prowess, and then gently push those limits, because that's what's going to make me excel over time and improve as an athlete. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
I think that's what I think that's what I got.
Yeah, no, I'm right there too. I agree. And, I can't get it out of my head that I wish we lived in this world where the only context that matters is that I make the decision that I'm going to run at maximal speed, and then it is so.
That's the only
But
switch I got, dude. Bang, like a shot out of a
maybe,
cannon.
hey, I'm perfectly transparent with I am not the toughest guy around.
You
And
know,
I
row
am
through the
not
gears,
that,
1, 2, 3, 4. I go
yeah,
right to 5.
exactly. And maybe there are people where that is the case, but in my experience with most people, they're the outliers that are just able to say, "Okay, coach," and run through the wall. Most of us, normal people, um, it's very difficult, particularly when you're out of shape, to just say, "Okay, 100%," and then it is so. For better or worse, I do think those natural governors are self-protective. So common sense obviously has to factor into it. I'm not saying that that allows either the coach or the athlete to just throw reckless abandon into the mix. However, at the end of the day, like your body is pretty intelligent when it comes to some of these things, and it's a lot harder to just convince it to go past those limits when you truly can't, um, than the alternative. So
You know, and
yeah,
the last thing that I'll end it on, again, stats are take them for what they're worth, right? I did my very best to try to like fact check things and whatnot, but of that crazy stat, and this is just, just the US that we said, but I'm sure it applies roughly to a lot of other places in the world, that 76% were not doing anything, sedentary,
mm,
inactive, overweight, obese, which leaves about 24% of people who aren't. Of those 24% who aren't, that doesn't mean they're engaged in physical culture and working
sure,
out hard in
yeah,
any way, shape, or form. And then of whatever really small, tiny fraction of the people who are active, most of the world is doing chest and tries and back and buys
yeah,
and body part splits. That's most of it. And then you get this teeny, teeny little sliver of lunatics, wonderful, beautiful lunatics like us and the listeners of the show that are engaged in high intensity, rigorous training. It's a
mhm,
really, really, it is a droplet of water in the ocean of like physical culture. Like if you are regularly experiencing, it's a lunatic that does Fran and says, "Great, see you tomorrow." I mean, that's a really special person, and we're surrounded by them, which is great. But you're a unique breed, and so,
mm.
and as are your muscles and tendons. So that's that.
Yeah, all right. Well, there you go. Full circle. I guess at the end of the day, yeah, maybe we do agree with that statement in the long
Yeah,
run.
in a crazy way. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe most people shouldn't sprint. Yeah, most people. Most people have some other
But
fish to
the
fry
trick is,
before they get there.
yeah, the trick is to just not fall into the most people camp. I could get
E-
behind that. Yeah. All right. I
Exactly, exactly. So,
think I've
all
amended
right.
my
I think
position then.
I think we covered some good ground on that. Hopefully that's useful for people. Hopefully it's just sparked some good debate or whatnot. Find this show, as we always say, everybody, on the btwb YouTube channel. Post your thoughts and comments about sprinting, pros, cons, yays, nays, should, shouldn't, whatever it happens to be. We always find them interesting. If you have ideas for future shows, content, or whatnot, post them there as well. We'll read those comments. You can go to the Very Not Random Instagram account, post a public comment there if you have an idea for a future show, or if you want to be more anonymous, just send a direct message on the Very Not Random Instagram account, and those will make its way to us as well. So for Adrian Bosman, I'm Pat Sherwood, and we will see you next time.